In this video, we're going to look at how to add in Ladderback Jacquard stitches. This is a machine knitting technique adapted for hand knitting that helps with the management of long floats used in colorwork patterns, as seen on the stranded colorwork knit swatch. And it's adding extra stitches that kind of make a skeleton stitch you can see here. It's a line of red knit stitches that break up this float, but they just float on top of the surface, so it's not actually integrated in the swatch, and you can't see it from the right side. So let's get started. In this video, I'm going to be working on a swatch knit in the round using the same pattern as this steek swatch, and I'm going to be adding in my Ladderback Jacquard stitches as I am knitting. I'm going to start by working my colorwork pattern, and I'm placing my Ladderback Jacquard stitches in between my pattern repeats where I have the longest floats in this section. So I'm just going to start knitting my colorwork until the point I'm going to add in my Ladderback Jacquard stitch. So I have knit my colorwork pattern repeat, and I'm now about here, so right in the middle of this long kind of space section, and I'm going to add in my Ladderback Jacquard stitch. I tend to like to put mine between pattern repeats, but you want to ideally locate where the biggest kind of floats are going to be located and place that stitch directly in the middle so it splits it nicely in half. In my case, I've designed it so it's right where the pattern repeat is. So this is, I'm going to be creating a stitch, so casting on. So what I'm going to do is bring both of my yarns, so both colors, main color and contrast color, to the front of my work between the needles. Like so. And now I'm going to cast on a stitch, and that's going to be in my contrast color. Now, when both those colors are at the front, I want to make sure my main color yarn, so the one that's not going to be in this Ladderback Jacquard, is hanging to the right hand side, and the contrast color is to the left hand side. I'm going to take my contrast color, and we're now going to cast on onto our right hand needle one stitch. And I do that with a backwards loop cast on. So we're going to just twist the yarn. Twist the yarn like so to make a loop. I'm going to place that loop on my right hand needle and just tug on it to make a stitch like so. So you can see it's running there. Now I'm going to take this contrast color to the back of my work between the needles, and then I'm going to bring my main color yarn to the back of my work. And what you should see, this is kind of how you can check this is right, is that your main color yarn is going to be crossing over top of that contrast color there. You can see the blues coming across my red, and that's what's going to keep our Ladderback Jacquard stitch sitting to the back of our work. So it looks like this. You can't see that red Ladderback stitch from the front. It's only on the wrong side. So now both of my yarns are to the back of my work, and I'm gonna work another repeat, and we'll add in another Ladderback Jacquard stitch again, so you can see how that works. So I have now finished knitting another colorwork repeat, so I want to add in another Ladderback Jacquard stitch. So we're going to bring both colors of yarn to the front of our work between the needles, so they're going to drape there. Again, you want to make sure your main color yarn is situated towards the right hand side, contrast color to the left. We're going to take our contrast color yarn and we're going to cast on one stitch using a backward loop cast on onto our right hand needle. So I'm just taking that, twisting the yarn to make a loop, place it on my right hand needle, tighten, Then we're going to take the contrast color to the back of our work between the needles. Now I'm going to take the main color to the back between the needles, and what you should see is that your main color yarn should be crossing over top that contrast color, so it's going to create that bar that happens between stitches, and that's going to keep our ladderback stitch to the back. So what I'm going to do is just finish the round on my swatch here, as we have just gone through how to add in those ladderback jacquard stitches, and then which is what you will do on the first round of your color work pattern. And I'm going to knit onto the next round of the color work pattern as to how we actually work those ladderback stitches while we're knitting our color work. So when I knit this next round, I'm going to knit up to where my ladderback jacquard stitch is, which is sitting over here. You can add in stitch markers in front to mark where they are, if that helps you out. So I'm just going to knit all the way up to my first ladderback stitch and show you how that gets worked. So I'm just coming up to my ladderback jacquard stitch, which is my red stitch here. So what I'm going to do is bring both of my colors again to the front of my work. So they're going to come between the needles like so. And to get what looks like that nice smooth column of knit stitches, we are actually going to be purling this ladderback jacquard stitch, which is in my contrast color. So both of my yarns are to the front. Again, my main color is sitting towards the right hand side, contrast color to the left. And then I'm going to purl my contrast color ladderback jacquard stitch, regular purl stitch, after which that contrast color can go to the back of my work. And now I'm going to move my main color yarn, which I didn't use, the ladderback jacquard stitch, to the back. And I moved that main color yarn second because what you want to see is here that I'm going to get what looks like a bar in that main color, and that's what is going to keep my ladderback jacquard stitches to the wrong side, so they're not showing up at the front on my right side. So what I'm going to do is just knit a few stitches past in my color work pattern so you can just see how that looks. There we go. So what you'll see is, if I stretch it there, you can see that bar of the main color, and that is going to keep, as I said, your ladderback jacquard stitch sitting on the wrong side. At this point, you are going to see your ladderback jacquard stitch visible on the needles as that stitch, but you're not going to see that column unless you turn to the wrong side. So I'm going to work to my next ladderback jacquard stitch, and we'll repeat that process again. So I'm just coming up to my next ladderback jacquard stitch, which you can see there, that little red stitch. So when I get to my ladderback jacquard stitch, we're going to bring both yarns again to the front of our work between the needles, let them hang at the front. Main color yarn towards the right hand side, contrast color towards the left. We're going to go into our contrast color ladderback jacquard stitch, and you're going to do a purl stitch with your contrast color, regular purl stitch. After you've done the purl stitch, take your contrast color or ladderback jacquard color to the back of your work. Then I'm going to take my main color yarn, which I didn't use, to the back of my work between the needles. That color gets moved second so that you ensure you're getting, you can see there, that bar of blue is coming over my ladderback jacquard stitch to make sure that it stays to the back of my work. And then you carry on working in your contrast color until you reach the next ladderback jacquard stitch. And this is what you're going to do on all subsequent rounds of your pattern. So bringing those yarns to the front and then purling your ladderback jacquard stitch in the matching color and then bringing both yarns to the back. You'll work this until you get to the end of your colorwork section, and then we are going to get rid of those because we don't necessarily want those ladderback jacquard stitches remaining there for the rest of your project. So I'm just going to carry on until I get to the top of my colorwork, and I'll show you how to kind of get rid of those ladderback stitches when we are ready to move on to some stockinette or something else with a single color. So when you're at the point where you are done and no longer need to have the ladderback jacquard, so if you have finished, let's say, your colorwork section and you're segueing back into a single color, what we're going to do is get rid of those ladderback jacquard stitches so that they're not there and you have your stitch count that you need for doing, let's say, ribbing or stockinette, whatever it is that you need to do on your pattern. So I am going to just knit. I'm just segueing into a single color using my navy main color, and I'm going to knit up until I reach my ladderback jacquard stitch. When I get to the ladderback jacquard stitch, you can see it is now the first stitch on my left hand needle. I am going to knit that red ladderback jacquard stitch together with the second stitch on my left hand needle, which is the main color stitch. So I'm just doing a regular knit two together, nothing fancy, like so. And so then you won't see that ladderback jacquard stitch. It is now nicely secured to the wrong side, and I have gone straight back to kind of my regular stitches on top there. So I'm just going to knit to the next one just to repeat how that is done once more. So again, I'm just going to knit until I reach my ladderback jacquard stitch, which is my contrasting color red there, and then we're going to work our contrast colored ladderback jacquard stitch, which is my first stitch on my left hand needle, together with the second stitch, which is in the main color, and you're just going to knit those two stitches together. So you should not see that contrast color stitch at all. It should be all visible from the wrong side. And that's how you do your ladderback jacquard stitch incorporated while you are knitting.